All right. Hello and welcome to this episode. And so my name is Matt Cotty and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and the founder of Restored Minds. And in this episode, I want to talk about the problem of living in a state of anxiety. And so when we're talking about anxiety, what we're really talking about is a state of stress that's induced by usually a futuristic idea or past, right? And what's happening is our body's in a state of stress when we currently aren't experiencing anything that's actually dangerous or a threat to us in the present moment. And this manifests in various ways, right? This can come on in the sense of panic attacks. It can come on as general anxiety, phobias, OCD, PTSD, right? But let's really talk about one of the biggest problems that I think goes unseen and kind of unobserved by most of us when we get lost in this state. Okay, and so for those of you that are new to the show or anything like that, we also would really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing and sharing, just to help us out with getting our message out. So we'd really appreciate you could do that. And also we have some links down in the resources or down in the notes. Below. To give you some additional resources on your journey. So when you're in a state of anxiety, right, one of the things that happens is you have this huge surge of energy in your body and in your mind, right? And this can manifest various ways. A lot of people will feel it in their chests. A lot of people will feel it as, experience it as racing thoughts. And what happens is we detect the disturbance, right? And we make the assumption that because there's a disturbance going on, there must be that I need to resolve it, right? That I need to do something to resolve. That's the biggest lie we get caught in with anxiety. And so what we do is we then try to resolve whatever our mind is chattering about, so it might be, well, I don't know about my relationship, or I don't know about, this job. I think I need to leave my job, and I think I need to, go to graduate school, and I think I need to X, Y, so it's chattering, and it's trying to essentially resolve the disturbance that we're experiencing internally. And the problem is that when we're in a state of anxiety, the biggest problem is that we think we're being logical. Most of us, when we're in a state of anxiety, we think we're being logical and rational and doing things that are completely that make sense. And because it makes sense to us, because this is what our mind is chattering about. But normally we're doing things that we would never advise anyone else to do. And so this is in my opinion, one of the toughest parts of anxiety is that when you're in this emotional state, you are convinced that you're acting rationally and logically, and you're not. I'm not, you're not, no one is, right? But it feels like that's what's happening. And it's very deceptive and very confusing. Right. So what happens is when we get anxious about something, our stress response is designed to bypass our rational mind and to put us into action. Right. And so what happens is that whatever we get anxious about, right, whether it's, something that might happen in the future, a presentation we have to give, whatever, that energetic experience that we have when our body's setting off the stress response, and again, nothing's happening. The biggest mistake we do is we try to resolve that state, right? We try to get rid of that state. We try to neutralize it. We try to suppress it. We try to push it down and go back to making ourselves feel like a, in a more homeostatic place. Right. And you're like, well, Matt, that makes sense, right? I want to feel better. I don't like feeling anxious. And the problem is that we will then make decisions in our life that usually, are not in our best interest in the long term. In fact, almost always. Every time when I've been in a state of fear, I am thinking from my lowest level of consciousness. And the problem is that for most of us, we are completely unaware that that's true. Right. But when I'm in a state of fear, I'm in my lowest level of consciousness. I'm in reactive state. So what I'm doing is I'm just trying to resolve the internal disturbance. Right. I'm just trying to make myself feel a certain way. And then what we're doing is we're trying to change our outside world to make ourselves feel better internally. Okay. And the problem with that is that our mind can come up with endless things to change in our world. And we can be in this really chasing our tails loop that people get in, where they're always thinking that the more and more I change my outside the world, the better I'll be internally. And this is the trap that most people get in, right? It's like, okay, I don't like my job, and so what I need to do is I need to quit and I need to move to Siberia and meditate for a year, right? Okay, is that something that you really need to do? I don't know, right? I really don't. But the thing is that the more and more we try to change our world to resolve our internal discomfort and our internal distress, the harder life becomes, right? Because a lot of things in the world we can't change. And then we see the problem as outside of us, so we never look inside to try to resolve it, okay? And this is what I mean about you think you're thinking logically, but you're not. The reality is the best thing you can do with anxiety is to really allow the energetic experience to surface, experience it fully, and not do anything to try to resolve it, and it will naturally dissipate on its own. This is the idea of exposure and response prevention for those of you that are learned about that, or have gone a little deeper when it with our stuff at Restored Minds or a part of our community. We talk about this consistently, right? And the idea is that your body's setting off this alarm system when nothing's really happening. But as soon as you go and try to change something outside of you in your life, what happens is you're validating that the outside world was really the problem. So then your mind comes up with another thing you need to change in your life. You know what? I don't really like my spouse too much, right? So yeah, I need to leave this relationship. That's the problem. And then you feel better. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, now I need to get in a new relationship. And now I need to get married. I need to have kids. I need to have this, right? And you're always chasing whatever the mind is saying the thing that will make you be okay inside. That's really the prison of anxiety right there, is that we are on this endless pursuit of our mind trying to tell us what we need to do in life to be okay inside, not realizing we are already okay at a default state. That is our natural resting place. Most of us can look around in our life if you're wrestling with anxiety and nothing's actually wrong. You have food to eat, you have shelter, you have your basic needs covered. And what's happening is that your mind is saying you're not okay, from this surge of anxiety. And then we react to it, right? We get into reactive consciousness and we make decisions that are just ill-advised and not aligned with our best long-term interests and outcomes. And that's the hardest part, though, is that when that energetic surge hits, it is so hard to realize that you are not thinking rationally at that time, because it feels like you are. Like the solution seems obvious sometimes. Well, of course I need to wash my hands another time. Of course I need to do this. And of course I need to do that, right? It seems obvious. But we need to realize that at the moment we're in a state of fear, we are not thinking rationally. We are not thinking from our highest self. We are not thinking with our intuition. We are thinking at our lowest level of consciousness. So important to understand that. And once we understand that, though, then we can start to take different steps, right? Because that's what most happens. We have this energetic energy, this energetic surge that we experience, and then we get reactive and try to resolve it. That's how most of us live, and that's why this cycle is so vicious, because your mind can come up with endless things to worry about, endless what if thoughts about the future. And instead of getting into, a reactive state of consciousness, what we can do is start to realize when we're anxious. And so for me, like one of the things that happens is like, if ever I'm feeling a surge of anxiety, that's an indicator to just step back from everything, right? It's like, oh, my body's experiencing anxiety right now. And so whatever my mind is saying, I almost immediately assume it's BS. And it's not good advice, right? Because 98% of the time that's true. Now there's a difference between using your mind to solve actual things that are going on, right? If you have a work project that you're working on and actually, making a checklist and working through the problem, that's completely different. What I'm talking about is our mind coming up with problems that don't exist and then trying to solve those problems that don't ever exist. And we live in this state of constant fear because we're solving problems that aren't even real. right? That's what we're talking about here. And then again, this comes in various ways. So the problem that I want to talk about in this episode is just the idea that when you're in that state of fear, you are going to think that you're thinking logically, but you really aren't. And once you can understand that, the moment you notice that energy in your body, the moment you notice anxiety, the moment you notice what you are experiencing, and if you notice your mind going really fast, if you notice these like energetic surges in your chest, and you notice your heart beating faster, and if you notice anxiety, you can almost always assume that your mind is not going to be thinking clearly. And so the best thing to do is to actually let the anxiety pass, put off all decision making, right, until your mind has calmed down and until your body has calmed down, and then revisit the problem from there. Because by getting into reactive consciousness, we're going to spin the wheel, right? And so allowing that energy to come up and allowing it to settle down on its own is such an important thing when it comes to your recovery, and even just noticing that you're feeling anxious and noticing that your mind is chattering, not what it's chattering about. Don't take the content so seriously. If your mind's coming up with futuristic stuff that's not happening right now, like, notice that. That's okay. It's allowed to do that. It's going to come up with all sorts of stuff. It's okay. But that's the big separation in recovery right there, is not taking the content of the mind at face value, but being able to separate yourself and just notice that your mind is chattering a lot, or that it's going really fast, that your body's experiencing this stuff, and actually giving your body the space it needs to surface this and process this and return to normal on its own. And if you can do that, what will happen is you won't get caught in the loop as much, and you won't be in such a reactive state of consciousness, right? And yes, it is very scary sometimes. I understand this is not easy to do, right? And that's why, like, if you're looking for support, right, and stuff like that, like over at Restored Minds, we have our live calls, we have our community, we have our our training, the AAA response, right? All these resources, to help you with this. This is not something that you should do on your own, but I mean, I just wanted to talk about this idea, today, of just this idea of realizing that when you're in this state, you are not thinking logically, even though you're going to think that you are. That is one of the biggest realizations I ever had, because it feels like you're being logical, and it feels like it's rational to do the things that you want to do, but really it's completely driven out of emotion. And seeing that for yourself is just going to be so helpful on your journey to recovery. So hopefully you found this helpful, and I hope that you're able to take this and start applying this into your life. And again, down in the notes in the show here, there's some links to a free guide that we have, as well as additional training and resources that will further equip you with more tools that you can use on your journey to recovery. So thank you so much for hanging out today. I really appreciate you being with us, and I wish you guys a great week, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Take care. Thank you so much for watching that video. And so if you're struggling with OCD and anxiety, I just wanted to let you know that we have a free training for you over at Restored Minds, where you can start learning how to use our AAA response to really break out of that loop and ultimately take back control of your life. And all you need to do to access is just click the little link below, and you'll be taken to a page where you can register today. Thank you so much.